The conditions do not need to be perfect. Other people have done it in worse situations, and honestly, if you were able to do it in the worst situation, it would make for a better story. So even if the conditions aren't perfect, you should still want to attempt to get it done. That way, if you actually do it, you have an incredible story. I just finished the Mississippi Marathon, my third official marathon for 2024, and in 3 weeks, right? I guess over the course of 4 weeks. I started out with the Houston Marathon, then last week I did the Miami Marathon, and then this week I did the Mississippi Marathon. I threw a fourth one in there that was just a practice. I've done a bunch of half marathons, so like I've been running constantly, right? And so this one is a little bit crazy, right? I made a video about the Miami Marathon, so go check that out. But for the Mississippi Marathon, I drive out there. And it's the night before. I had spent the day spraying tables, so I was finishing up with the woodworking for the day before I went out to race this race, right? I drive over to Mississippi, and it's a 7.5 hour drive the day before this marathon. I leave at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so I knew I was going to get there around 10, 11 o'clock at night, right? And so the drive is bland, is what it is. It's at night. I probably should not have left that late because I was a little bit tired, and I'm glad that I got there safely. When I pulled up into Greenville, Mississippi, and looked around, I was like, holy cow, this is where I'm staying for tonight. This place is run down. This place is in the middle of nowhere. I don't know anyone. It's 11 o'clock when I pull in. So I was just a little bit on edge, right? And anyways, it was fine. Like I was like, I've slept in my car in worse places before. I've slept in a van in Oakland, California, the highest crime city in the world, or in the U.S., I think. So, this is nothing, right? So I go into it, and the night before the Mississippi River Marathon, I have to get my daily mile in, so I go and do that, come back, and go to the bathroom at this hotel, but the hotel was so jank. As well, because I had my car, I was like, I'm not gonna, stay in this hotel for one night for $70 to $100. Doesn't make sense. So I slept in my car several times. I'm just gonna sleep in my car again, right? Roll down the windows a little bit. It's 12 o'clock, 12:20, and I gotta wake up at 5:30 because I got the marathon coming up. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna fall asleep, get about 5 hours, and we'll be good to go. So I'm in the car, laying down in the driver's seat back like this, and it's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it's a safe place, where I can sleep for the night, right, and just get some hours in, because that's all I really need. And I knew that this wasn't a big deal. I've broken down the concept of a marathon to be practice for this 50 States Marathon series. So every single week I'll be doing one, and in a way I'm just practicing for the next. So it's not a big deal if I don't have the perfect conditions for the first one. And you see where I'm getting at, right? Or for each one, because I know that eventually when I'm running the Hawaii Marathon, it's the last one for the year, even then I won't be running that as like the final marathon I ever do. It's not such a peak in my life. I've just taken it down to just be normal. It's a regular hill, it's not a peak. So I can take the stress away from going into this event with suboptimal conditions, and honestly kind of embrace it because the story gets better, right? So then I'm trying to sleep in my car, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and the windows were cracked a little bit, and some mosquitoes must have flown in, because I wake up and my body's just so itchy. I was like, holy cow, what's going on? Scratching my ankles, scratching my arm. I'm like, oh, what is this? Looking around like, where am I? It was terrible. And anyways, I rolled up the windows a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was sleeping with my blanket as my pillow in a way, so I could sleep on my pillow, but also have the blanket right here, so I didn't have a crook in my neck. And so I didn't have a blanket on while I was sleeping. Luckily, it was still, it was like 60s, 70s, so it wasn't too cold inside the car. And I was like, what? Because of the mosquitoes, I'll probably have to sleep with the blanket on so that they don't land on me and keep biting me all night. So in order to be able to do that and sleep with my head down instead of like at an angle, I had to hop in the back seat. Now I drive a Honda Civic, 2-door, right? So not 4-door. There's 2 rows of seats, but like, the driver's seat, passenger seat, and then the, back row or whatever. But this thing is just not that big, right? Especially for a guy who's 6 feet, maybe 6'1" on a good day. So I lay down back there, and I literally have my legs up in like a fetal position or whatever the term is, where like your legs are up like that, right? So they're up on the glass on the window, and got the blanket over my legs, and I'm like scrunched up like this. And you know what? It was a little bit more comfortable, to be quite honest, because I was able to put my head down on the pillow, right? So when I was sleeping, I actually got some decent sleep for those 3.5 hours. And so I wake up and it's like 5:30 to some noise. Some guys were walking by the car, and they must have been preparing for the marathon. So that woke me up, and I was like, okay, well, I have another like 15, 20 minutes, but I'll just wake up, get the day started. And because I parked right there, I was like 5 minutes from the start line. So I was just walking straight over, got everything ready, went to the bathroom, and, it wasn't the perfect sleep, right? I slept in a car with no blanket for half the night. My body was itchy because of the mosquitoes. It was a little bit cold, but not too crazy. And it was not in the safest place ever, but I did it. I got some sleep, not the perfect race conditions, but we were going into this with the confidence that we could finish. And that's all you really need. It's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter what happens to me, I'll be able to push through this. And we'll touch on that in a second, right? So then started the marathon, and, Houston and Miami, there were some interesting things that happened. This was the most boring marathon, 26 miles race that you've ever, seen. There was literally only one hill. That's how boring this was. The course was super flat, and it was on a highway. So it was nice seeing like all the cop cars out. There were like 20 of them, and that was probably all the cop cars for this town. There was a population of 2,400 people, so it was a very small place. The Lakeview is where we ran through. We started in Arkansas and ran over into Mississippi, right? Okay, so not the craziest day, it was 26 miles. It was a little bit bland. There was water along the way, and like we got the race done. Towards mile 18, 20, my hamstrings got super tight. So now I know that I got to start stretching those a little bit more. But we finished the race, and even though it was a terrible night's sleep and super boring and, overcast, raining a little bit, like it wasn't exciting at all, we still did it, right? And so I walk out of that, and now I have the confidence that like, because this happened again with the Miami Marathon, getting very poor sleep, that no matter what happens going into a marathon, I'm going to be able to finish, right? Sub 4. Because I did 3:44 on this race. So as long as the humidity isn't too crazy, like Miami, then I'm good to go. I'm golden, right? And so now I have that confidence after doing 3 official marathons this year and doing another one today as a practice, even though yesterday I ran the Mississippi Marathon because I got to start practicing for the double marathon weekends. Even though, where is it going to go with this? With the confidence of those 3 official ones, I can go into this Mesa Marathon next weekend and know walking into it that even if the conditions aren't perfect, I'm going to get it done, right? And that's the 2 things with this. One is that that's the mindset that you need, right? The work needs doing, so whatever happens, I'm going to get it done. That's going into any situation, you got to know that in your mind. 2 is that if you're prepared or if you're able to complete it in the worst scenario, then when the best scenario comes around, you can really excel. Right? Imagine that you were able to perform in any conditions, then you'd be unstoppable. You'd know exactly, let's say you had a clear vision in mind and you had this ability to persevere through anything, right? Then you, in any circumstance, you would know what you could do to move towards your vision, and you would be able to actually move towards it in that condition because of your perseverance, right? Which is crazy. Those 2 things are an absolutely lethal combination of skills that will push you forward in this world, right? You will be able to do anything that you want if you can like harness those skills, okay? But it's very difficult because coming up with a vision requires you to search your past, know where you've been wrong, correct those mistakes, and then try to move forward on this path that you have for yourself, right? Then for the perseverance, that requires you to put yourself in difficult situations constantly. And so those 2 things, even though that's all you really need to do anything in this life, no one will ever do them. Very few people will actually complete those 2 things or move towards those 2 things because it's so difficult. So honestly, if you just made that your priority in life, you're ahead of 90% of people, because now you've got a vision. So all of the things that you do are moving towards a goal, and there's no distraction anymore. And not the the term of like distraction as social media and those types of things, but more so things that are not going to serve you long term. So this 6-month project that you worked on that doesn't really amount to anything in the grand scheme of things, right? Okay, so then I leave the race. Just to get back to the story, I leave the race and I'm driving home, right? I stop in Starkville at Mississippi State University, and they have a Chipotle now, which is really cool, because when I was there on the college tour, they didn't have a Chipotle. But anyways, I stopped by Chipotle, get this massive burrito, right? It was delicious, and the girl that was serving it up, I think she gave me a lot of food, so I appreciate that. I don't know why she did, but, I appreciate it. And anyways, I'm leaving, and as I'm pulling out, I get hit by a car, right? This guy, or I guess a truck. This guy, basically, his truck was too tall. He was turning around. He didn't see me, so his wheel went over my back wheel on the Honda and just absolutely tore off the bumper, right? And I was like, okay, well, it is what it is, right? So I hop out of the car, take a video. Like, hey, man, let's just pull over here real quick. No big deal. So we pull over, and the guy's really nice. He's really chill about it. He's like, hey, I'll call the cops so they can come over and get this taken care of. His wife goes in and gets Chipotle, comes back out, he's waiting in the car with the kids. I'm just chatting it up with him for like a good 30, 45 minutes while the cop is taking care of all the details. It was obviously his fault, right? Even though it was annoying for that it was his fault, is what it is. Like when he was pulling in, it was a difficult situation because, he could have gone a little bit further around. He just didn't know, whatever it was, right? Anyways, bumper comes off. It's his fault. Cop takes care of it. We're sitting there talking, and I'm like, hey, man, appreciate you being really cool about this, really chill, because a lot of people, this would be the worst thing that ever happened to them, right? And he's like, nah, man, it's just another day, this is just things like this happen. And I was like, yeah, you're right. He's like, if this was like the main thing that happened in my day, we'd have a problem, right? If this was a worry in my mind, usually that's a signal that you got nothing else going on. And I was like, yeah, if this is like the highlight of your day, not highlight in the sense of being a good thing, but like the event that you remember from this day, from this week, you don't have much going for you, right? If getting your bumper pulled off and it not being that big of a deal is a big deal to you, dude, what's wrong with you? What's going on in your life to where that is a highlight? This should just be another thing that happens. It should not be something that's like, oh man, yeah, I got hit by this car, tore the bumper off. Yeah, it was so bad, man. Man, I feel so bad for you. It's like, shut up. Honestly, are you serious? It's just literally the most insignificant thing. You cannot treat it with any more importance than that, right? Especially because insurance will take care of it, and it's just a minor hassle. If this is something that's big for you, dude, you need to reorient your life. You need to figure out why something like this, something so small, has such importance in your life. The reason why I'm saying this is we were saying, if this is the main thing that's going on in your day, right? If this is the main event, then you got some things to change. You got to figure out, what can I start doing, right? For example, my day, the morning started out with a marathon and ended with this small car wreck, right? Well, the highlight of my day was the marathon, or secondary, the 7.5 hour drive to go back to Atlanta, right, from Greenville, Mississippi. That was the secondary highlight. And then maybe the third would be the little skerfuffle, or whatever the word is, the accident. That would be the hierarchy, right? If you don't have something better, and maybe this is a good question to ask yourself. If I got in a little small car wreck today, or a car accident, would this be the highlight of my day? And if it is, then that's the sign that you need to go out there and try to figure out, what else could I do to change that, to make something else with more importance part of my daily routine, so that I'm actually walking away from the day, from the week, with something meaningful, an actual thing to carry with me as I move through this story that is life, right? So I don't know, there's just a bunch of interesting perspectives at the Mississippi Marathon, but what it came down to is this: don't worry about the conditions to get started. Just do something, and then ask yourself, if I got in a little car accident today, would that be the highlight of my day, right? If it would be, then you should probably try to figure out something better that you could do, and then don't worry about the conditions, just go out and do it. And then when you're done, every single time, come up with a little bit of a story for yourself, right? Write it down, film a video, whatever it is. That way when you look back, you can say, oh yeah, that week is when I took on that project, and yeah, along the way, I had to drive to the airport, fly out, all these different things. There's so much going on, but I was still able to do it, right? Or whatever the conditions were that made it not perfect. It's going to depend on your situation. Make somewhat of a narrative, a story out of this. And like, this is the important part about journaling, right? I don't like to journal, write down stuff, but I do like to take these videos because now I can look back and see what happened in that time of my life. And then I can draw from that meaning from my past experience. So now I actually have useful moments with my time instead of it just being a passage of time, right? Another great thing to tie this all together with the 50 States Marathons series, I can look back and say, yeah, for every week for the past 4 weeks, I've run, I guess, not every single week, because 1 week I failed at 13 miles, but regardless, I've run 4 marathons this year so far, and it's only February 4th, right? 35 days into the new year, and I've run 4 marathons. Most people have 1 marathon on their to-do list for the year, right? The fact that I've done 4 in a year, in the first month, and most people don't even do 4 in their lifetime, that gives me that confidence. I can walk forward in life, and every single marathon that I have for the rest of this year, I can walk into it with the confidence. Like, I've trained for this, When you have a mountain of confidence so big, you can walk into the fire and know that you'll be okay. Know that you'll walk out unscathed because you've put the work in and you're prepared. Then you can just enjoy the time. You can just have another day and, another story to tell, right? So that's that. Try to come up with something big that you want to do. If it's reading 50 books in a year, if it's, and you don't have to have a number attached to it, but usually that makes it a little bit easier to track, a little bit easier to plan for. So come up with something that you can do this year and do this like constantly. I'm always thinking like, what's the series that I can do? Oh, I could read a book every single week, and I haven't stuck to that, but at least I've stuck to the marathons. So then I do the marathons for a couple weeks and I'm like, okay, I'm in this schedule. I'm in the habit of doing a marathon every single week. I know what the training looks like. I know what the recovery looks like, the travel, all the things that come with it. I still have X amount of time left in my schedule. Let me try to take on one more thing to put on top of the things I'm already doing, right? You start with 1 and then keep going. 1 million starts with 1. So if you want to do 1 million things in this life, you have to start with the first. Get that done and slowly move forward. Then you build that mountain of confidence so that you can walk into the fire and leave unscathed. That's that. Why not us?